Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about the shield meta that we kind of find ourselves in, and talk about why it exists, and is it a problem? Obviously with MSI being played, the most hotly contested champions, basically all tournament, have been the high damage dealing, the support champions, I should say. Like, shield comps are all over the place. Like, Lulu, Karma are very, very hotly contested picks. Ivern has been picked or banned in just about every game, even in regions that aren't known for Ivern players. And generally, teams are starting to play these kind of protect the carry comps with an AD carry and 2 or 3 shielding champions to keep them safe. And I kind of wanted to say, is this kind of playstyle a problem? And, just kind of give a few thoughts about that. Now, shielding is in. Why is that? Because for a while it wasn't. Like, Karma was getting played, wasn't really that big of a deal. Lulu started getting played, wasn't really that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden they became the only sports that got played. And, kind of what happened to get us to that point? Well, a couple of reasons, I'm guessing. First is that, unlike healing, it can't be reduced by grievous wounds. You are always guaranteed to get the full value of the shield, and shields also have higher values to start with than heals. You will always shield a champion for more than you heal them, and that just makes sense, because heals are permanent. If I heal somebody, they will keep that health until they lose it, whereas if I shield somebody, eventually it'll go away. So it does kind of make sense there. However, the other thing is that the durations of the shields are fairly long. There are not a lot of shields right now that are temporary. You pretty much shield somebody and they have it for usually a good 5 seconds or so, which is a long time to have a decent amount of bonus HP that you're not paying anything for. And then finally, the biggest reason is that it makes up for the weaknesses of current AD carries. So if you remember back in the day, we did have the utility carry meta, which was a lot of immobile AD carries. We had the Jhin, Varus, and Ashe, and even though it's slightly ended, we still have a lot of utility carries getting played, and Caitlyn actually came back in the meta in a big way. So you have Caitlyn and Ashe. These champions do a lot of damage from a range, and while not strictly speaking hyper carries, can still carry a game quite easily because they're very safe. However, they also have no escape from all-ins. If someone jumps on their face, they're gonna die because they have no way of getting out. They have very little in-your-face protection. It's difficult for them to escape. So it does kind of make sense then that you would want to play a shielding support or someone who can keep them safe, because it helps fix their problems when they do get jumped on. Shorter range AD carries, meanwhile, have more safety from these situations, but also have to rely on it more because they do have a shorter range, and they usually don't deal as much damage as these long range champions. Which means that while Lucian is good, he's not as good as a Caitlyn in a late game scenario because he can't stay quite as safe as a Caitlyn can. And it also means that he's less dependent on shielding supports, but he's not really quite in the meta as much as someone like Caitlyn or Ashe. And so because shielding supports are getting played to support these AD carries that kind of came up in the meta, it sort of also meant that, well, hell, if we're going to play the Lulu or the Karma already, we may as well play a Twitch or a Kog'Maw and make it even stronger, because now, yeah, we're playing a hyper carry. If this guy scales late, we just shield him and he will kill everybody for us. And so that's kind of where we run into the shield support meta. And the biggest problem, though, is not with shielding supports and this sort of hyper carry-esque meta. I don't think that's a problem. The biggest problem I have is that shielding supports are bringing too much else to the table. Instead of just being defensive champions focused on protecting their carries, they end up being sort of generalist, I do everything I want champions. Karma and Lulu have really, really high damage and other utility on top of their shielding. They're not stuck with just trying to keep someone alive. They can play aggressively. They can try to make plays in lane. And Ivern has full run of the jungle because of his passive. He also has a ton of utility, even though he doesn't really have much damage or tankiness to contribute. And meanwhile, if you look at a few other champions that aren't quite as popular, obviously Janna is a shielding champion. Why isn't Janna getting played? It's because Janna doesn't have these advantages. Janna is very passive in lane. She can't walk up and harass. She can't really push. She doesn't have these advantages and can set up kills in the bot lane. Karma and Lulu can. And conversely, a champion like Orianna, who's also a shield champion but not very hotly contested, yeah, she has a decent amount of utility, but she pays for it with lower lane presence. Orianna will basically not kill you in lane without help. Unless you just walk into a command shockwave, then I can't really help you there. But so these champions pay for it, whereas the current meta supports don't really. Karma in particular, I feel like, is a bit of a generalist. I think she's the most egregious offender of the three because she has two reliable forms of crowd control, very, very high damage. Especially that her chains guarantee a gank follow-up unless you burn flash, because as soon as she starts it, you either need to use your mobility or need to flash, or you're going to get rooted, and then that makes for an easy skill shot for a Lee Sin, and then you're dead, and is generally not good. The shield plus the speed is also a big advantage that she brings. Help Pix's bonus damage doesn't really matter too much, but the fact that Karma also gives you shield boost means that these immobile AD carries have another way of getting to safety. And moreover, Karma has really good wave clear, which means that she and her carry can really push you in and keep you at a disadvantage throughout the laning phase. So I would love to see her have a more refined identity. Is she a damage dealer that can shield, as sort of like Orianna, or is she a utility-based champion with a little bit of damage? I think Riot need to pick one and go with it for Karma, because right now she just does too much. Second, I'd like to talk about Lulu. I think she's mostly fine. I'm not going back on my opinion. I think Lulu is a fine champion. Her damage is a little bit high, especially given that most of it is for free. Her auto attacks do a reasonable amount of damage because of Pix Fairy Companion. So I would like to see some of her damage go down. I don't think it needs to be extremely reduced, but after you do that, I think her identity is mostly refined as a protective support, so that's totally fine to me. She just needs to do a little bit less damage and be less threatening with all-ins. And then finally, we come to Ivern, who I think everyone knows is a little bit overpowered. And I think it's mostly just because, first, his passive makes it so that he doesn't really have any jungle patterns that you can reliably figure out. Ivern can start any camp on the map that he wants. He can walk into your jungle and steal a camp without taking any time to do it. He walks up, and as long as he has smite, that camp is his. And on top of that, he has a lot of utility. I mean, Trigger Seed is a shield with slows. He's got a relatively long duration route that doubles as a dash for champions that don't have dashes. Brushmaker gives him the ability to check bushes from a long distance. He can also use it to protect his carries by making them suddenly untargetable. Obviously, Daisy is a giant crowd control chain if you can't kill her fast enough. So Ivern just has too much utility. And which is fine. I'm glad that he is kind of the utility jungler, but he has too much. So I think they need to start by trimming back his excess strengths. I know a while back, Ivern's Brushmaker range was reduced on PvE. I would love to see that change come back, because I think it's a lot of free power that isn't apparent, but is very, very good for Ivern. So anyways, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this sort of shield meta. I would love to see what you guys are thinking, especially about the three champions I listed above, and where you think they kind of stand in terms of balance. I know I'm very different from the consensus on Lulu, but I would like to see what you guys think after hearing my thoughts. Anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. If you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well, which will probably be tomorrow, because I believe we just got our announcement. Anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.